thank you, Yancy, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. And I think the previous speaker has actually gave a very good overview of what is needed. But when COVID actually arrived on our shores, we suddenly need to see what we've got and how can we actually then go forward. So one of the first things that we actually did was to once the first case of COVID was identified in South Africa, we immediately look at what is the rapid response, what can we do, how can we do it, which resources do we have that we can bring together. And so the first things immediately we start looking at modeling, surveillance, epidemiology, and your community engagement to understand how this is affecting people. And then we then went into clinical trials to look at your potential treatments, become part of the solidarity trials of the WHO, and then also look at when the vaccines actually started to emerge. We also then became involved with the vaccines. One of the important things is we were able to build on the HIV and TB research experience that we do have in the country, and we could immediately link in those researchers to actually assist us in designing programs on how to take the research then forward. One of the moment when the world went into lockdown, we immediately were exposed to the fact that we did not have the necessary local industries to pick up ventilators, to pick up diagnostics and so on. So it was a scramble to actually get that kind of information then in the world. So we immediately embarked on a program then to first of all understand the science, understand what is going on. How did the sort of person that first brought it, that was identified, first identified how that actually developed. But in the process, we were then able to actually write down the story, use the experiences that we've got in order to assist the hospitals and the healthcare workers on how to deal with COVID-19 then in South Africa. And one of the reasons why we could do it so fast is because we've had a HIV surveillance system in place that we could just switch over to actually to do the SARS-CoV-2 surveillance for us. So as a result of that, we then created a network of researchers looking into the surveillance of South Africa. Where is the disease? Where are the new waves? What new waves are we dealing with? And so all of these researchers are working together and then sharing the information and give regular updates on what is actually happening with regard to COVID-19 in South Africa. As you all are aware, the beta variant was identified in South Africa, and we were then banned from the rest of the world. Delta then took over, and then eventually a year later after beta, the Omicron was actually identified in South Africa, and immediately the first thing the world did was ban us again. So by being open about our science and by sharing our science, one of the things that unfortunately happened is we were punished for that. And then later on, it became across the world that Omicron has been around in other countries, was detected in other countries, and you cannot actually blame one specific country for that development of that. But this is just to demonstrate that we do have the ability in South Africa to do the good science. And we, in the case of beta as well as Omicron, we actually informed the world before it was detected by any of the European countries as such. So I'm now this is just to demonstrate how fast between the first notification, there's something that is not out of the norm on the 15th of November to the actual informing the world on the 22nd of November, I think was fairly fast. And this is how we were actually, by being able to share the data with one another and then share it internationally, how quickly we could then detect the presence of Omicron. So based on our ability then to do the surveillance, in order to understand what is happening within communities, we actually also got a system where we use surveillance of your wastewater, because that actually allows you to almost see 2 weeks ahead of time where you can expect a wave in a specific area then. So this is now becoming standard practice, and I think this is, and is definitely, they are already looking at other pathogens that then will be surveilled through this mechanism. So this is as part of the ongoing rollout of policy going forward. This is becoming now one of the major looking at pandemics and how to then identify areas where you need to spend specific more attention to on what is going on. So it's one of our planning tools is then to look at your wastewater surveillance as such. As part of the initial lockdown of the world, we were then forced to start looking at how can we then develop our own diagnostic toolkits. First of all was your diagnostic assay reagents that we had to develop the whole process in-house in order to do that. And now what's available is actually at 50% below the cost of the imported kits. We also created a rapid antigen test that is available at $2.20 per test. And also based on the need to develop the controls for your COVID testing, then we were actually able to do that, and that is now being exported to those countries that's marked in red in the world, that technology that was developed locally. And then lastly was actually the use of a sequence data solution in order to actually upscale the genomic surveillance, and that system is now available in 29 countries. So what we've got, we then share as far as possible then with our neighboring countries and the rest of the world. The last thing, in order to be prepared, we actually need to start looking at vaccine manufacturing. I'm not going to go into the whole story about Africa not getting the vaccines it's needed. I think it's a well-discussed topic as such. So one of the things that we immediately also started, as the moment when it seems that there will be vaccines available, 4 companies actually are active now into that. Aspen is the one who's manufacturing the Janssen or J&J vaccine. Then Biovac is another company that is actually doing the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine. And then the WHO announced the mRNA technology transfer hub. And then lastly is a company that from the USA that is actually now created their own subsidiary in South Africa, where they're also looking at bringing new technologies, going beyond COVID, but actually build the ability then to locally manufacture vaccines. So we're not only looking at your full finishing components, but we actually also, through the mRNA hub, the Biovac activities and NANT-SA, we're actually also looking at then making the drug substance or the API for vaccines locally. So the global mRNA technology transfer hub was in the news quite for the last 2-3 weeks. What is very interesting is by using the data that's available around one of the vaccines, they then use the sequence data and actually then use the local technologies at universities, and they were able to make in laboratory already mRNA vaccine. And we are looking into the upscaling of that on the moment and entering into clinical trials before October this year. So by having this concerted effort, we able then to actually do it. And I think that's one of the important things is in order to do that very fast, we brought together the universities in South Africa combined with your industry then to see how can we then work as a virtual pharmaceutical company in order to go through the whole process then actually to develop then mRNA vaccines. We're not limited to mRNA vaccines. We're also going to use the same system then to look at other vaccines that is necessary. But because we had the infrastructure in place already, we were able then to start bringing these together, and we were not dependent on just one company doing it all. I think one of the most important things is we did it together, and we are busy working together and collaborating with one another in order then to take it further. And that is one of the major important things, is to see how you can actually then, yes, you've got a crisis, how do you work together? How can you utilize that what you've got, and then bring and then say, we're in it together, let's find a solution. Okay, thank you.